Hello and welcome to Valley Viewpoint. My guest today will be talking about services that are provided to the youth and children in our community. My guest is Naiomy DeLaRocha Minckler. Not Winkler, I messed that up, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Anyway, good to have you with us on the show. So I'd like to know a little bit about what LCYC is and how it got started.
Absolutely. So LCYC stands for Legal Counsel for Youth and Children. And we initially started out in Seattle, and it was based on some community members that were focusing on trying to strengthen and empower youth. And a lot of them were working with the dependency field, which is child welfare and foster system. So they were working with children and young adults, and they really discovered that there was a need for that advocacy that helped them to kind of, one, learn their legal needs, and two, figure out how to achieve them.
So, to clarify something for our viewers, you are an attorney. Counselor, we're happy to have you here.
Thank you.
Tell us more about who started it and how it has grown, because we're no longer just in Seattle.
Absolutely. So Legal Counsel for Youth and Children is a 501c3, and it was started by a few different founding attorneys, and a lot of them were public defenders in the dependency field, so with child welfare and foster care, and they were just defending youth and minors specifically. So they kind of got together, and it was like a collaboration between these organizations, and they really focused on developing an organization that would provide these free civil legal services to these youth and young adults. And so that's how LCYC kind of came to be. And it started out in Seattle, and it has slowly expanded its efforts out into Walla Walla County, and hopefully next week out in Benton Franklin County. So what LCYC does, and what we are now, is we're an organization of 16 attorneys. So we're all staff attorneys that are working for the youth, and we work in 4 different areas of law. The first one being dependency, which is the foster care, child foster care and welfare. And then the second one is juvenile defender matters. So we do represent youth in juvenile proceedings. We also have, we work with immigrant youth as well as the Youth Homeless Project. And excuse me, that's the Youth Homeless Program. And the Youth Homeless Program is the program that has expanded out to Walla Walla County. So that Youth Homeless Program is where we specifically help youth between 12 to 24 who are homeless or at risk of being homeless. And depending on what program the youth gets involved in, the ages and the eligibility is a little different, but for Walla Walla County specifically, it's the Youth Homeless Program.
So ages 12 to 24 means that you're not in competition, or better, you are not overlapping with Child Protective Services, is that correct?
So we actually work with Child Protective Services. So Child Protective Services, our understanding is that they investigate abuse, abandonment, and neglect of a child. So they start the initial investigation and stuff, and what we do is we can either represent the youth in a case that's being handled by CPS, or we can assist the youth in other ways, as well as being able to file our own private petitions. Let's say that Child Protective Service doesn't see a case rise up to the severity that they usually require. At that point, we can step in and help the youth kind of accomplish their goals. So unlike CPS, because we are attorneys, we are not mandatory reporters, which means that if the youth does not want to report whatever's going on, but they do want to know their legal options or their legal rights, they can receive our assistance, and we can counsel them and explain to them their options. And at that point, it's up to the youth to make the decision as to how they want to proceed with whatever remedies they want to follow.
So as an attorney, you can maintain absolute confidentiality, whereas if they were to talk to a teacher at school or talk to maybe a scout leader or something like that, then those people would not have that same privilege.
Correct. So the attorney-client confidentiality is pretty extreme. We are not mandatory reporters, as well as we cannot be a witness against them in any sort of court proceedings.
How long have you personally been working with LCYC?
Officially, I've been with LCYC as of October of 2019. So not too long, but that is when we initially expanded out to Walla Walla, which is where I now reside.
So, I'd like to find out more about what specific services you provide. What can you do? Who would want to come to LCYC? What are some of the cases, not getting into personalities or names or anything like that, but give us an idea of the spread, or how many different things you are doing for young people who need legal services.
So we offer a wide range of different civil legal services. So we can help anything from emancipation, housing, so landlord-tenant issues, helping with immigrant youth with their special juvenile immigration statuses. We can help with issues with education, like helping them with their individual education plans, or making sure that they're receiving any public benefits that they're qualified for, or I mean, just about anything you can think of. So we're really here to help eliminate any legal barrier that they have that's either leading them or causing them to be homeless. So just about anything they can think of, we can figure out how to help them. And we understand that each community has youth that are facing different legal issues, and we're very flexible in figuring out how to best serve those youth.
Now, I know that you personally are at least bilingual. You may speak many more languages than just Spanish and English, which means our services are available to both English-speaking and Spanish-speaking individuals. Are most of the attorneys associated with LCYC bilingual?
We do have about 4 attorneys out of the 16 that speak Spanish. So there is a Spanish-speaking attorney that's available to the youth in just about any area of law that they need, as well as we try to keep our website and a lot of the resources that we do offer both in Spanish and in English.
What is the website?
The website is LCYCWA.org.
Sounds very, very reasonable.
Yes.
Why are you involved with LCYC? This is a personal question. You're an attorney. Attorneys are known for making lots of money. You're not going to get rich doing this kind of work. What motivates you to do this?
So our work is pro bono, so it is free. And yes, I'm not going to make much money off of it, hardly any. But the main reason I wanted to join an organization like LCYC was when I was younger and before I even knew what I wanted to be. I had a lot of friends that encountered what I now know are legal issues, but the advocacy that they received or the assistance that they received was not one that I would consider desirable. The youth, or actually at that time, a lot of my friends were either not being listened to or heard, or their stories just weren't being advocated for, and I mean, it's as far as saying they weren't being believed. And so that's when I decided that I wanted to be able to be a person that would be there to listen and advocate for youth that are really wanting to get the help that they need but don't think that they have many options, especially being so young. So when I started looking into careers, I found out that in law you can represent youth. Sometimes you're forced to represent both the youth and the parents, but with LCYC we specifically focus on helping the child or young adult. So I definitely was happy to find an organization that did this, but now I can know that what I wanted to do when I was so young, I am actually able to accomplish now. But that kind of happens when you do come from a small rural town, and for me specifically, it was a border town. So there was a lot of things that were happening that I definitely wish I could have done more for, and now I am glad that I can.
You say you're from a border town. Are many of the cases that you deal with involving immigration issues?
Yes. So unlike some organizations that are restricted by their inability to represent immigrants, we do represent immigrant youth, and we do have a really strong working connection with the Northwest Immigration Rights Project. So we are able to help with immigrant youth who are trying to figure out their options here in the state. So we do help them, and then we can start kind of the state action and then help transition over to the federal action.
Now, you mentioned your association with Homeless Project. Do you only help the homeless?
So here in Walla Walla, our funding does restrict us to helping homeless youth and young adults between 12 to 24. So it does limit the types of cases that we can, but out in King County and we're still exploring the option of going virtual to cover the state of Washington, but depending on where the legal advocacy area of law is geared towards, we can help youth that are not necessarily homeless or at risk of being homeless. And one thing to clarify is our definition of homeless youth is a youth that is maybe stably housed with an aunt or grandparent, and that person does not have any actual legal authority over the youth. They are considered homeless under our definition because they're not with their legal guardian. And if the youth is under the age of 16, they really do have a legal issue that we try to help.
Okay, so you don't have to be out on the street eating out of the dumpster in order to qualify as a homeless person per your definition for being a homeless person.
Correct. So this youth can be stably housed in a place where the person just doesn't have legal authority over them and they would qualify for our service, or they could be out on the street sleeping at the parks. I have had youth that sleep at the parks or that are at a shelter, or here in Walla Walla, the teen shelter, the Loft, or at the sleep center that's run by the Walla Walla Alliance for Homeless, or Christian Aid Center, or any of those facilities. We can help any youth. And all it takes is just a referral from a community partner or someone that they know. And the way that they can refer is just either going onto our website, LCYCWA.org, or they can text or call us at 206-494-0323.
We're going to take a break now. We want you to get your pens and pencils ready so you can see those websites and contact numbers on your screen. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Hello and welcome back to Valley Viewpoint. If you are just joining us, I am visiting today with Naiomy DeLaRocha Minckler. I got it right this time.
Yes.
So, Counselor, we were talking about how people can contact you. Let's say that there's a young person out there that's watching right now and they think an issue that they need legal help with. And they're asking the question, well, how do I know if this is something that they're going to take seriously or if it's something that they deal with? So how do you sort out what to talk with you about and what maybe you need to talk with your school counselor about?
Yes, so one thing we tell all our youth and all the partners that we work with, because we do focus on that strong community partnership, is if there is a question and you're not sure if it's a legal question or not, err on the side of caution and just call us and ask. We're very available. We don't want you to try to figure that out. We can figure that out for you. So, and what LCYC does, which is different than a lot of other organizations, is we do provide a holistic approach to the legal advocacy. So let's say that there is something else that needs, help along with the legal issue that they've come to me for. Let's say that they also have some mental health counseling that they want, or something along those lines. We are strongly focused on the community partnerships to provide that warm handoff, and based on what the youth wants, we will ensure that the youth has the availability to kind of connect. And sometimes it takes me being on the phone with the youth to kind of do that. So even though the issue might not necessarily be 100% legal, if there's other things that we can assist with, we will. We are not limited by just the legal side of things.
So do you have a 24-hour hotline anytime somebody gets in trouble or whatever that they can call, or do you have certain office hours where you have to make the phone call?
No, so with the way LCYC works, because we work primarily with homeless youth, the youth legal issues aren't those that are limited to 8 to 5. Sometimes it's late at night, sometimes it's early in the morning. Each attorney develops their own schedule, they make their own schedule, and each attorney has their own direct line. So for Walla Walla, I just ask that youth either call the direct line, is probably the easiest, as fastest, or if there's a community partner or some agency or a friend that wants to call for the youth's behalf, then they can, and I'm pretty available almost all day, every day, and if not, I definitely try to get back as soon as possible. So for that, they would just have to reach out directly to my extension, which would be the 206-494-0323, extension 712. And at that point, I can help, whether it's after hours, before hours. If they call, I'm usually either calling right back or calling within a short period of time.
So I'm running away from an abusive home, and the police have just picked me up at 2 a.m. in the morning. What do I do?
They can either call me, or if they
do you
just
get much sleep?
Thankfully I do, surprisingly. A lot of the stuff tend to happen usually around 8-ish, surprisingly. But yeah, so I mean, I'm pretty available, and we just say that they can call us. We do have cards. I'm also, prior to COVID, I was out in the public because we don't really have an office, because we are working with youth who can't necessarily either get to an office, or they don't have a form of transportation or something. So what we were doing prior to COVID was we were at the high schools during lunch. So we were at Lincoln, Walla Walla High School. We were working on College Place High School, but then COVID hit. So we were working our way towards being there, physically present at the school on a certain day of the week during their lunch period. I'm also pretty accessible, and I was pretty often at the sleep center here in Walla Walla, or I now have access to the loft to be able to do intakes or something there. So if a youth is close to one of those facilities and they want to call me there, I will get in my car and go meet the youth at that location, versus trying to expect a youth to get to me.
So your office is wherever they are?
Correct.
Which is a new way of looking at legal services.
Yes, and that's something that most people don't really do, but it's a way that we've found is very helpful for the youth, because it's not very easy for them to necessarily get in a car when they're 15, 14 and
Right.
drive to a place, or if they are fleeing a domestic violence situation at home or something, or they don't want parents to know or something. It gets a little difficult trying to ask your parent for a ride to your lawyer's office. So that's what we try to do, is we go to the youth.
Now, you've been at this for almost a year.
Yes.
Are there any, and of course we don't want names or any circumstances that would pinpoint a particular person, but I'm just wondering if there are examples, either in your own personal experience or that you've heard from other attorneys in the organization, that demonstrate or highlight what LCYC does.
Well, there's definitely been several different situations. And And one thing to note is that LCYC, we are attorneys and we are hired by youth, which is not something people are used to hearing. So just like an adult would go and hire an attorney and then the adult makes the decisions, the youth hires us or retains us, and we are driven by what the youth wants. So if the youth, for instance, wants to report something or does not want to report something, it is strictly up to the youth. So cases that I've assisted with is youth that are trying to figure out how to work their relationship with their parents out, but it's not working out. The parents keep kicking the youth out, and now the youth is forced to figure out where are they going to stay, what are they going to do, and at that point we can step in and make sure that they have a safe place and then put up any of the legal remedies that we can for the youth to make sure that they have a safe place to go. And if it's more of a situation where we need the placement to be longer, we can either negotiate with parents, work with CPS to try to get that youth in a safe environment where the youth wants to be and wants to work on thriving and improving their life and stability. So there is a lot of different things that we have done. We've done some youth getting some temporary parental consents in place, which allows the parent and the youth to come to an agreement as to where the youth is going to be living for temporarily, but then that person can help make certain restricted medical decisions on the youth. For instance, if the youth needs to go to the hospital and they need treatment there, or we have assisted with doing emancipations, but in a way where the parents want to agree and want to support it and have even supported some of the emancipations, but it's really just talking to the parents and the youth and figuring out what is their ultimate goals. But I am client directed, so it's really what the youth wants me to pursue, wants to do. Sometimes it's figuring out how to get certain issues resolved in the household, but they feel like they have no power. We have engaged in what's called a child in need of services, a CHINS petition. We can do that where that kind of helps reunify the family, and it helps target and receive services through the Department of Children and Youth and Family Services so that they can ultimately be able to work on their relationship together. So there's many different things that we have done to help youth, as well as in Walla Walla County, Walla Walla County as a whole has been elected as one of the 4 communities that's part of the Anchor Community Initiative, which is an initiative that is focused on ending youth homelessness by 2020. And the way they do that is by creating a yes-to-yes system where when a youth is going into homelessness, we can immediately provide the services that they need to not end up on the street or homeless. So we are working on that, and we do have some state funding to try to help the youth get the services that they need, and whether that's figuring out how to get them housed, how to provide them with clothes and necessary undergarments or stuff like that. There is the youth engagement team, which consists of 2 youth and young adult service navigators that help them navigate all of the services, the legal side of it, which is me, and what will soon be a counselor that will also be helping those youth. So we are trying to provide wraparound services to help these youth with the various issues that they might be experiencing.
Now, you work in Walla Walla County.
Correct.
Southern border of Washington, right across the line, Umatilla County in Oregon. Everything that you've said has been in the context of Washington. If there's a person in Oregon that needs services, can they contact you, or is that out of bounds?
So that's been a little tricky. We are restricted to legal services here in Washington. However, if a youth is experiencing homelessness and I meet with the youth let's say we meet at a park here in Walla Walla and they are couch surfing here in Walla Walla, but let's say parents are there. There are certain legal avenues that we can take while they're here in Washington. But if it is something that involves more of a legal proceeding where the parents have to be served and the action has to be taken in a court out in Oregon, then at that point we try to locate a free civil legal service aid.
I guess if you're a homeless
organization.
youth, you just cross the border and you're in Washington, right?
Right, and unless there's an action that needs to be filed against the parents, that's where our limitations kind of exist. But if not, and if they just need services here in Walla Walla and I meet with them here in Walla Walla, then they can get my services.
Thank you very much for joining us, and thank you for joining us on Valley Viewpoint.